The corridor was cold. Velthara felt her daughter Pix shivering against her side, and the baby Trell had stopped crying hours ago. That scared her more than anything. When babies stopped crying, it meant they had no strength left. She looked down at the door in front of her. It was just like all the others on Station Kalo 7. Gray metal, scratched from years of use, with a small nameplate that read, Minho, Human, in Galactic Common. She had knocked on 17 doors today. 17 different species had looked at her blue skin, seen her Quellan features, and slammed their doors in her face. The Vrexians had called her a warbringer. The Telutians had spat at her feet and told her that suffering was not their problem. The Cheetolans had simply clicked their mandibles and walked away, their hive minds unable to process why she expected help from non-kin. Even the official refugee center had turned her away. Too many refugees, they said. Not enough resources. Come back in 3 weeks. Her children would be dead in 3 weeks. Velthara had heard rumors about humans. They were new to the Galactic Council, barely a century out of their home system. Other species whispered that humans were weak, too emotional, burdened by feelings that more evolved species had left behind millions of years ago. They said humans cried over small things. They said humans helped even when it hurt them. They said humans were foolish. She hoped the rumors were true. Her hand trembled as she pressed the door chime. She heard movement inside. Heavy footsteps. The door slid open with a hiss. The human was tall, with dark hair and tired eyes. He wore a maintenance worker's jumpsuit, stained with grease and sweat. He had clearly just come off a shift. He looked at her, then at Pix, then at the baby in her arms. His eyes widened. Please, Velthara said in broken Galactic Common. Her voice cracked. Just one night. My children need food. I can work. I can clean. I can do anything. Please, just one night. She fell to her knees right there in the corridor. It was the ultimate humiliation in Quellan culture, but she was beyond pride now. Pix started to cry softly. Trell remained silent. The human stared at her for a long moment. Velthara waited for the door to close. Waited for the rejection. Waited for him to call station security like the Telutian merchant had done. Instead, Minho stepped aside. Get in here, he said quietly. Come on quickly. Velthara could not believe it. She stumbled to her feet, clutching her children, and rushed inside before he could change his mind. The door closed behind them. The quarters were small. One main room that served as both living space and bedroom. A tiny kitchen area. A bathroom door in the corner. But it was warm. The environmental controls were actually working, unlike the cold corridors outside. Velthara felt tears burning in her eyes, just from the warmth that Minho was already moving. He went to a storage cabinet and pulled out silver packets. Ration packs. Standard station food, but food nonetheless. He tore one open and handed it to Pix. Here, he said. Eat slowly, okay? Small bites. Pix looked at her mother. Velthara nodded, still too shocked to speak. Her daughter grabbed the ration pack and started eating. Not slowly. She was too hungry for slowly. But Minho did not seem angry about it. He opened another pack and looked at Trell. The baby. What does she eat? Milk, Velthara managed to say. But I cannot. I have not eaten enough to make milk. Minho nodded and went back to the cabinet. He pulled out a small container of powder. Nutrition supplement, he said. It is for humans, but it should work for most species. Let me mix it with water. He went to the kitchen area and worked quickly, mixing the powder with warm water in a bottle. He tested the temperature on his wrist, the way any parent would, and handed it to Velthara. Try this. Velthara took the bottle with shaking hands. She brought it to Trell's mouth, and her baby daughter latched onto it immediately, drinking desperately. The relief that flooded through Velfara was so strong she thought she might collapse. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you. I will repay you. I will work. I will." "Sit down," Minho interrupted. He pointed to his bed, the only piece of furniture besides a small table and chair. "You look like you are going to fall over." Velfara sat, still holding Trell as she drank. Pix climbed up beside her, clutching her ration pack like treasure. Minho pulled out another ration pack and handed it to Velfara. "Eat," he said simply. "But what about you?" Velfara asked. "I already ate," Minho lied. Velfara could tell it was a lie. She had learned to recognize lies over the past weeks of begging and desperation. But she was too hungry to argue. She ate. For several minutes, the only sounds in the room were eating and drinking. Trell finished her bottle and let out a small burp. Pix ate 3 ration packs before finally slowing down. Velfara forced herself to eat slowly, though her body screamed for more. "Where are you from?" Minho asked quietly. He had pulled the chair from the table and sat down, giving them the bed. "Quellaprime," Velfara answered. "Before the war, the Vrexian clans attacked our colony worlds. They said we had broken an old treaty. They said we deserved it. Maybe we did. I do not know about politics. I just know that my home burned. My husband died protecting us so we could reach the evacuation ships. We have been running ever since." Minho nodded slowly. "I am sorry." Those words. So simple, so human. In Galactic Common, most species did not even have a direct translation for sorry when it came to empathy. The Vrexians had a word that meant acknowledging fault in transaction. The Tellusians had a phrase that meant recognizing inefficiency in outcome. But humans said sorry and meant I feel your pain. The other species, Velfara said carefully, they would not help. They said refugees are not their problem. They said we should go to the Quellan settlements. But there are no Quellan settlements anymore. The war destroyed them all. People can be cruel, Minho said. Not just aliens. Humans, too. We are good at looking away when looking hurts too much. But you did not look away. Minho shrugged. You knocked. You asked for help. What kind of person would I be if I said no? A normal person, Velfara said. By galactic standards, you are very strange. That made Minho smile, just a little. Yeah, I have been told that before. Pix had fallen asleep, her small body finally relaxing now that her stomach was full. Trell was also sleeping, making soft baby sounds. Velfara felt exhaustion pulling at her, but she fought it. Where will you sleep? She asked Minho. I will be fine, he said. I have a shift in the morning anyway. I will just rest in the chair. I cannot take your bed. You already are, Minho said, and there was gentleness in his voice. Please, sleep. You are safe here. I promise. Velfara wanted to argue more, wanted to insist, but she was so tired, so incredibly tired, and her children were warm and fed and safe for the first time in weeks. Just one night, she said again, but this time it was not begging. It was gratitude. Just one night, Minho agreed. Velfara lay down on the bed with her children beside her. The mattress was soft. The blanket Minho pulled over them was clean and warm. She could hear him moving around the room quietly, cleaning up the empty ration packs, adjusting the environmental controls dot as she drifted off to sleep. She heard him humming something. A human song, probably. Something soft and sad and beautiful. She did not understand humans at all, but she was grateful they existed. 3 days had passed since that first night. Velthara kept expecting Minho to ask her to leave, but he never did. Instead, he went to work each morning and came back each evening with food. Not just ration packs anymore. He brought fresh fruit from the station market. He brought protein bars designed for children. He even brought a small stuffed toy for Pix, who had not owned the toy since they fled Quella Prime. Velthara watched him carefully during those 3 days. She was trying to understand. In the galaxy she knew, kindness always had a price. The Vrexians operated on honor debts that could take generations to repay. The Tellusians only helped family members, and even then, they kept careful records of who owed what. The Chitulans shared with their hive, but would let outsiders starve without a second thought. But Minho asked for nothing. He did not mention debts. He did not ask her to sign contracts. He just helped. On the 4th morning, Velthara woke to find Minho asleep in the chair again. His head was tilted at an uncomfortable angle, and his neck would hurt when he woke up. She had been sleeping in his bed for 4 nights. He had not complained once. She stood quietly, careful not to wake the children, and looked around the small quarters. They were even smaller than she had first thought. The storage cabinet where Minho kept his food was nearly empty now. He had been feeding 3 extra mouths for days. There was a small desk in the corner with a data pad on it. Velthara should not have looked, but she did. The data pad showed a transfer record. Minho sent money to someone named Sahi every week. Large amounts. Almost everything he earned. There was a message attached to the last transfer. For your medicine. Stay strong. Love you, brother. Velthara felt something cold settle in her stomach. Minho had someone back on Earth who needed his help. Someone who needed his money. And he was spending it on strangers instead. She heard movement and turned. Minho was waking up, rubbing his neck exactly as she had predicted. He saw her looking at the data pad and did not seem angry. Your sister? Velthara asked quietly. Yes, Minho said. She is sick. The medicine is expensive. But you are buying food for us instead. Minho shrugged and stood up, stretching. Sahi would understand. She is like that. She would feed you herself if she was here. Why? Velthara asked. The question came out harder than she intended. Why do humans do this? It makes no sense. Your sister needs medicine. You need food. But you give everything to aliens you do not know. The galaxy says this is weakness. They say humans are too emotional to survive. Minho walked to the kitchen area and started making something hot to drink. Coffee. Velthara had learned it was called. Humans drank it every morning. Maybe it is weakness, Minho said. I have thought about that a lot since I came to this station. I watched the other species, and they seemed so much smarter than us. The Vrexians never waste resources on non-clan members. The Tellusians calculate everything perfectly. Even the Chitulans have this beautiful efficiency to them. He poured the coffee and took a sip. But then I think about what it means to be human. My mother used to tell me stories when I was little. Stories about people who helped strangers. About people who gave their last piece of bread to someone hungry. About people who jumped into rivers to save drowning children, even though they could not swim well. Those people died, Velthara said. Some of them did, Minho agreed. But some of them lived. And the people they saved lived. And those people went on to save other people. My mother said it is how humanity survived. Not by being the strongest or the smartest, but by being the ones who helped each other. Velthara sat down at the table. Pix was stirring on the bed, starting to wake up. But I am not human. My children are not human. We are nothing to you. You are something to me, Minho said simply. You are a mother trying to keep her children alive. That is enough. Before Velthara could respond, the door chime rang. She tensed immediately. Station security? Had someone reported them? Minho opened the door. A human woman stood there, wearing a pilot's jacket. She was carrying a box. Yuna, Minho said, surprised. What are you doing here? Heard you had guests, Yuna said. She pushed past him into the room and set the box on the table. Brought some stuff. Clothes for the kids. Some extra ration packs. Oh, and this. She pulled out a medical kit. Nari said to give you this. She is a medic, human, works in the clinic. She said to bring the baby by today if you can. Wants to check for malnutrition. Velthara stared at the box. At the clothes. At the food. At this stranger who had brought gifts. I cannot pay, she said. Yuna laughed. Did I ask you to pay? Minho is terrible at asking for help, so we help anyway. That is how it works. That is not how anything works, Velthara said. Not in the galaxy. Not anywhere. Well, it is how humans work, Yuna said. She smiled at Pix, who was now fully awake and staring at the new person. Hey there, little one. You like spaceships? I am a pilot. Maybe I can take you to see my shuttle sometime. Pix looked at her mother. Velthara nodded slowly. Pix smiled, the first real smile Velthara had seen in weeks. Yuna stayed for a few minutes, talking about nothing important, then left. But her box remained. Velthara opened it and found not just clothes and food, but also small toys, blankets, and even some Quellen comfort food. Someone had researched what Quellens ate and found some for her. How many humans are on this station? Velthara asked. Maybe 50, Minho said. Not many. We are still new to this part of space. And they all help like this? Most of them try, Minho said. We have a saying on Earth. It takes a village to raise a child. I guess we brought our villages with us to the stars. That afternoon, Minho took Velthara and the children to the clinic. It was in a different section of the station, and they had to walk through the main market area. Velthara saw other Quellens there, begging for food just as she had done. She saw Vrexians stepping over them, saw Tellusians turning away, but she also saw a human man giving a Quellen child some fruit, saw a human woman arguing with a Vrexian merchant, demanding he lower his prices for refugees, saw a group of humans collecting donations outside a shop. The clinic was small, run by a human named Nari, who looked too young to be a doctor, but clearly knew what she was doing. She examined Shrell carefully, gently, explaining everything she was doing in simple words. She is underweight, Nari said, but she will be okay. You got her food just in time. Another week, and it would have been bad. Velthara felt tears burning in her eyes again. She cried so much these days. She had never been a person who cried before the war. Thank you, she whispered. Nar, I smiled. Bring her back in a week. I want to check her progress. And bring yourself too. You are too thin. Mothers cannot help their children if they do not help themselves first. As they walked back to Minho's quarters, Pix holding Minho's hand and skipping, Velthara tried to process everything. The help, the kindness, the lack of demands for repayment. In Quellen culture, she said slowly, we have a concept called Zelther. It means the debt of life. If someone saves your life, you owe them everything. You become part of their family. You serve them until the debt is paid. Okay, Minho said, not understanding where she was going with this. I owe you Zelther, Velthara said. You saved my children's lives. By Quellen law, I am yours now. I will serve you however you need. Minho stopped walking. He looked at her seriously. Velthara, you do not owe me anything. I helped because it was the right thing to do. Not because I wanted something from you. But that makes no sense, Velthara said, frustrated. Everything has a cost. Everything has a balance. If I do not repay you, the universe is wrong. Maybe the universe is wrong sometimes, Minho said. Or maybe different species see the universe differently. You want to repay me? Yes, then get better. Get strong. Help your children grow up safe. And someday, when you see someone else who needs help, help them. That is all I want. Velthara stared at him. Pass it forward, she said, remembering a human phrase she had heard. Exactly, Minho said. That night, after the children were asleep, Velthara found Minho sitting at his desk, looking at a photograph on his datapad. It showed him with a young woman who had the same eyes. She was in a hospital bed, smiling despite looking very sick. Sahi, Velthara said softly. Yeah, Minho said. He wiped his eyes quickly, but Velthara had already seen the tears. You miss her. Every day. And you give us money that should go to her medicine. Minho looked at her. Sahi is getting her medicine. I just work extra shifts to make up the difference. It is fine. You are exhausted. I am fine, Minho said again, but he was not fine. Velthara could see it. He was tired and worried, and probably not eating enough himself. And still he helped. Still he gave. She understood something then. Human weakness was not weakness at all. It was something else. Something the rest of the galaxy had forgotten or never had. It was the ability to care, even when caring hurt. To give even when you had nothing. To love beyond logic. It was terrifying. It was beautiful. And Velthara realized she would protect this human and his strange, wonderful kindness with everything she had. Word traveled fast on Station Kalo 7. By the end of the first week, everyone knew about the human maintenance worker sheltering Quellens. The reactions were exactly what Velthara had expected. In the common areas, she heard Vrexians laughing. The human feeds Warbringers, one of them said loudly enough for everyone to hear. He probably thinks they will be grateful. They will steal from him the moment he sleeps. The Tellusians were less cruel, but equally dismissive. Inefficient, their merchants said. Humans waste resources on non-kin. This is why they will never advance beyond their current status. Even the Chitolans seemed confused. Their clicking conversations, which Velthara had learned to partially understand, kept returning to the same question. Why would a non-hive member sacrifice for outsiders? But something else was happening too. Something the other species had not expected. More humans were helping. It started with Yuna bringing food every few days. Then Tai-Ho, who ran a small repair shop near the docking bays, offered Velthara a job. It was simple work, organizing parts and cleaning equipment, but it paid enough for her to buy food. He also paid her in advance for the first week. You do not know if I will do good work, Velthara had protested. Then prove me right for trusting you, Tai-Ho had said with a smile. She proved him right. She worked harder than any employee he had ever had. Tai-Ho told her later. She was so grateful for the chance that she made his shop shine. Then Nari, the medic, started treating Velthara and her children for free. Medical care should not have a price, Nari said when Velthara tried to pay. Not when it comes to children. One by one, the humans on the station began creating a network. They shared food, tools, and living space. When another Quellen family arrived at the station, desperate and hungry, a human named Jiwo took them in without hesitation. When a Syrian refugee collapsed in the market from starvation, 2 human traders rushed to help him, while everyone else stepped over his body. The alien residents of Kalo 7 watched all of this with growing confusion. This was not how the galaxy worked. Resources were limited. You helped your own kind first. You made sure your own survival was secure before wasting energy on strangers. This was basic evolutionary logic that every successful species understood. Except humans. Velfara saw the change happening in the human section of the station. It started to feel different from the rest of Kalo 7. In the main corridors, species ignored each other unless there was business to conduct. But in the human quarter, people talked. They shared meals. A Quellan child played with a Syrian child, while human and alien parents chatted nearby. It was strange. It was wrong by galactic standards. It was wonderful, but not everyone appreciated it. Station Administrator Crix, a Tellusian bureaucrat who had run Kalo 7 for 20 years, called a meeting in the main commons. Velfara went with Mino, nervous about what would happen. The commons was packed. Hundreds of station residents, representing dozens of species, filled the space. Crix stood on a raised platform, his silver skin gleaming under the lights, his multiple eyes scanning the crowd. "We have a problem," Crix announced. His voice was cold and efficient, like everything Tellusians did. The human population of this station has been disrupting established resource distribution protocols. They have been providing aid to unregistered refugees, straining our already limited supplies. Murmurs of agreement came from the Vrexian section. The Tellusian merchants nodded. "This cannot continue," Crix said. "I am implementing new regulations. All refugees must register with station security. Anyone found sheltering unregistered individuals will face fines and possible deportation. Resources will be distributed according to standard Galactic Council guidelines, which prioritize registered residents over transient populations. In simple terms, he was making it illegal to help refugees." Velfara felt her heart sink. She looked at Mino, expecting to see defeat in his eyes. Instead, she saw anger. Minho stood up. "I would like to speak," he said loudly. Krix looked annoyed. "This is not a debate, human. This is an announcement of policy." "Then I am announcing my disagreement with your policy," Minho said. He walked forward through the crowd until he stood at the base of the platform. "You are telling us we cannot help people who are starving. You are telling us we have to turn away children who need food. You are telling us to let people die. I am telling you to follow the natural order," Crix said. "Resources are scarce. We must prioritize survival of registered residents. This is how every successful station operates. This is how civilization functions. Is it?" Minho asked. He turned to face the crowd. "Is this really how civilization works? We let children starve because they do not have the right paperwork? We step over dying people in our corridors because helping them would be inefficient?" "You are being emotional," Crix said dismissively. "This is a known human weakness. You allow feelings to override logic." "Yes," Minho said. "I am emotional. I feel angry when I see suffering. I feel sad when children cry from hunger. I feel compassion when a mother begs for help. And you know what? I am not ashamed of that. Maybe it is a weakness, but I would rather be weak and human than strong and empty." A Vrexian stood up. It was Krell, the security guard who had mocked Mino before. "You speak of compassion, human, but compassion does not feed anyone. The resources you waste on outsiders could feed your own people. You make yourself vulnerable for aliens who owe you nothing." "They owe me nothing," Minho agreed. "But I am not helping them because I want something back. I am helping them because they need help. Because I can. Because if I do not, who will?" "That is not your responsibility," Crix said. "Then whose responsibility is it?" Minho shot back. "You are the administrator. You have the power to help, but you choose not to. The merchants have resources, but they choose profit instead. The Vrexians have strength, but they choose honor codes over kindness. Everyone has an excuse for why they should not help. And meanwhile, people die in our corridors. The commons had gone quiet. Even the species that had been agreeing with Crix seemed uncertain now. Yuna stood up from the crowd. Minho is right, she said. I have been on 12 different stations in this sector. You know what I see? Empty corridors, clean floors, perfect efficiency, and absolutely no soul. Kalo 7 was the same until recently. But now I see communities forming. I see different species helping each other. I see hope. Taiho stood too. I make more money now than I did before, he said, because Valthara works for me, because I took a chance on someone who needed it, because helping people is not a waste. It is an investment. One by one, humans stood up. Then something unexpected happened. Assyrian refugees stood up. The humans saved my life, he said in heavily accented Galactic Common. They gave me food when I was dying. I have nothing to give them back. But I will remember. I will help others when I can. Another Quellan stood. Then another. Even a young Vrexian, barely old enough to serve in the warrior caste, stood up. My clan would be ashamed of me, the young Vrexian said, his voice shaking. But I have watched the humans. I have seen what they do. And I think maybe we have been wrong about what strength means. Crix looked around the commons, and Valthara saw something she had never seen in a Tellusian before. Uncertainty. This is chaos, Crix said, but his voice had lost its authority. This is not how civilization operates. You are creating instability. No, Minho said quietly. We are creating community. And yes, it is messy. Yes, it is inefficient by your standards. Yes, it costs us resources and energy, and sometimes it hurts. But you know what? We are not dying inside anymore. We are not empty. We are alive. He looked around at all the faces watching him. Human and alien. Registered residents and refugees. You can make all the regulations you want, Administrator Crix. You can fine us. You can threaten deportation. But you cannot make us stop caring. You cannot make us stop being human. And I think you will find that compassion is more contagious than you realize. Crix stared at him for a long moment. Then he looked at his datapad, at the new regulations he had been about to implement. Valthara saw his many eyes moving, calculating, processing. I will reconsider the new policies, Crix finally said. This meeting is adjourned. He left the platform quickly, and the commons erupted in conversation. Valthara saw aliens talking to humans in ways they never had before. She saw Vrexians actually listening to refugees. She saw Tellusian merchants, looking thoughtful instead of dismissive. Minho came back through the crowd to where she stood with Pix. He looked exhausted but also relieved. You were very brave, Valthara said. I was very stupid, Minho said. I probably just made things harder for everyone. No, Valthara said. She looked around the commons, at all the conversations happening, at all the barriers beginning to crack. I think you just changed everything. A Vrexian approached them. It was Krell, the guard who had been so cruel before. He stood in front of Minho, and for a moment, Valthara thought he might attack. Instead, Krell bowed his head slightly. In Vrexian culture, it was a sign of respect given only to equals. I do not understand you, human, Krell said, but I am beginning to think that is my failure, not yours. He walked away before Minho could respond. That night, Valthara could not sleep. She stood at the window of Minho's quarters, looking out at the station corridors. She saw a human sharing food with a Syrian, saw a Quellan helping a chitterling repair something, saw small acts of kindness spreading like ripples in water, The galaxy had always told her that survival meant putting yourself first, that compassion was weakness, that helping strangers was foolish. But watching those ripples spread, Valthara wondered if maybe the galaxy had been wrong about everything. The alarm started at 0300 station time. Valthara woke instantly, her refugee instincts screaming danger. The klaxons were loud, urgent, the kind that meant catastrophic failure. Red emergency lights flooded Minho's quarters. Minho was already moving, pulling on his maintenance jumpsuit. "Hull breach," he said, reading something on his datapad. "Docking Bay 7. A cargo ship crashed during approach." Valthara's blood went cold. Docking Bay 7 was in the refugee sector. That was where most of the Quellans, Syrians, and other displaced people lived, where families crammed into spaces meant for cargo storage, where children slept on the floor because there were no beds. "My people," she whispered. "I know," Minho said. He was checking his emergency suit, making sure the seals worked. "Stay here with the children. Lock the door. The breach is 3 sections away. You should be safe? Should be?" "The hull is old," Minho said grimly. "If the breach spreads, they will seal this entire sector. But that will not happen. The emergency systems will handle it." He did not sound convinced. The datapad on his desk chimed with an official announcement. Valthara read it over his shoulder. The words were cold and efficient. Pure Galactic Council protocol. Hull breach in Sector 7 confirmed. Decompression in progress. Emergency bulkheads will seal in 5 minutes. All residents are advised to shelter in place. Rescue operations will commence after containment is secured. "After containment," Valthara repeated. "That means they are sealing the sector. Anyone still inside will run out of air," Minho finished. "Standard procedure. Sacrifice the few to save the many." He grabbed his emergency kit and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Valthara demanded. "Where do you think?" Minho, no. "You heard the announcement. They are sealing the sector in 5 minutes. If you go in there, you will be trapped." "There are children in there," Minho said simply. "I heard them yesterday. A Quellan family just arrived. They have 3 kids. The youngest is a baby. Pix's age, you will die." "Maybe," Minho said, "but maybe I will not. And if I do not try, they will definitely die." He opened the door. Valthara grabbed his arm. "This is insane. This is that human weakness everyone talks about. You cannot save everyone." Minho looked at her, and his eyes were sad, but also absolutely certain. "I know I cannot save everyone, but I can try to save someone. That has to be enough." He left. The door closed behind him. Valthara stood frozen for a moment, then made a decision. She woke Pix gently. "Stay here with your sister," she told her daughter. "Lock the door. If I am not back in 1 hour, find Yuna, the human pilot. She will help you." "Mama, no," Pix said, suddenly wide awake and afraid. "I have to," Valthara said. She kissed her daughter's forehead. "The human taught me something. He taught me that some things matter more than survival." She ran into the corridor. The station was chaos. Alarms blaring. People running. She followed the flow of people moving away from Sector 7 and pushed against them, moving toward the danger. Other species looked at her like she was insane. She probably was. She reached the entrance to Sector 7 just as Minho and 3 other humans were forcing open the emergency door. The automatic locks had already engaged, trying to seal the sector. But the humans had override codes, probably illegal ones, and they were working frantically. "Valthara," Minho shouted when he saw her. "Get back." "What are you doing?" "What you taught me to do," she shouted back. "Helping." The door opened with a grinding sound. Beyond it, The corridor was a nightmare. The hull breach had torn a massive hole in the outer wall. Emergency force fields were trying to hold the atmosphere in, but they were failing. Air was being sucked out into space. Debris was flying everywhere, and people were screaming. Minho did not waste time arguing with her. He just threw her an emergency breather mask and ran into the chaos. Valthara followed. The next 20 minutes were the longest of her life. She saw Minho and the other humans pulling people from collapsing rooms. She saw Yuna carrying 2 Syrian children, one under each arm, running for the exit. She saw Taiho using a piece of metal to pry open a jammed door, his face bleeding from flying debris. She found a Quellan mother pinned under a fallen beam, crying because she could not reach her baby. Valthara pulled the baby from a corner where she had been protected by luck and debris. The child was terrified, but alive. She handed the baby to another refugee running past and then helped lift the beam off the mother. They ran together toward the exit. She saw a human she did not know, a man named Junho, throw himself over a Tellusian family when a support beam fell. The beam crushed him, but the family survived. She saw another human, a woman named Hyeri, dragging an unconscious Vrexian toward safety. The roof collapsed on them both. Neither got up. She saw Taiho reach for a Vrexian child trapped in twisted metal. The metal shifted, caught his arm, and tore it half off. He kept pulling the child free with his remaining hand, screaming but not stopping. And through it all, she saw something that the galaxy had never seen before. Humans running toward death, while every instinct of survival screamed at them to run away. Running toward it for aliens they barely knew. Running toward it because those aliens needed help. It was horrifying. It was beautiful. It was so incredibly human. Minho found the Quellan family he was looking for. The mother was already dead, crushed by the initial impact. The father was dying, his breathing shallow. But the 3 children were alive, huddled in a corner, too terrified to move. "I have you," Minho said to them in Galactic Common. "I have you. You are safe now." He tried to carry all 3, but they were too heavy. Valthara appeared beside him. "I will take 2, she said. "You take the baby." Together they ran. The emergency bulkheads were closing. They could hear the grinding of metal as the station's automatic systems sealed Sector 7 off from the rest of the station. They had maybe 30 seconds. Behind them, Valthara heard someone crying. She turned and saw a Tellusian merchant she recognized. The same one who had spat at her feet weeks ago. He was trapped under debris, his leg clearly broken. She should have kept running. He had been cruel to her. He had refused to help when she begged. He deserved this. But she thought about Minho, about what he would do. She handed the 2 children to Minho. "Get them out," she said. "I will be right behind you." "Valthara, go." Minho ran with all 3 children. Valthara went back for the Tellusian. He stared at her in shock as she pulled at the debris. "Why?" he gasped. "I was cruel to you." "Because someone taught me to be better than you were," Valthara said. She got him free. They stumbled toward the exit together. The bulkheads were closing fast. 10 seconds. 5. They dove through the gap just as the doors slammed shut behind them. They lay on the floor on the safe side, breathing hard, covered in blood and dust. The alarms were still blaring, but the immediate danger was over. Valthara looked around. She saw humans sitting on the floor, exhausted and wounded. She saw aliens they had rescued, crying and shocked. She saw Taiho being treated by Nari, his arm mangled, but his face showing satisfaction because the Vrexian child he had saved was alive. She saw bodies being carried out. Junho, Hyeri, 3 other humans, whose names she did not know. They had died saving aliens who most of the galaxy considered worthless refugees. and she saw Krell, the Vrexian security chief, standing over Junho's body. The human had died saving Krell's nephew, who was in the refugee sector visiting friends. Krell was making a sound Velthara had never heard of Vrexian make, a keening wail that meant honor shame in their culture, the debt that could never be repaid, the guilt that would follow him forever. Station Administrator Crix arrived, looking shaken. He surveyed the damage, the rescued refugees, the human casualties. His multiple eyes took in everything. How many saved? He asked quietly. 43, Una reported. She was crying, her face dirty, holding a Syrian child who would not let go of her. We lost 5 of ours, but we saved 43. The protocol said to seal the sector, Crix said. The protocol said everyone in there was acceptable losses. The protocol said it was logical to sacrifice them. We are not very logical, Minot said. He was sitting against a wall, holding the Quellen baby he had rescued. The child had fallen asleep in his arms, exhausted and traumatized but alive. Crix looked at him for a long moment. No, the Tellusian said finally. You are not logical at all. You are something else entirely. He turned to his security team. Full emergency support for all survivors. Medical care for everyone, regardless of registration status. And I want a memorial for the humans who died. They will be remembered on this station forever. That night, after the chaos had settled and the wounded were being treated, Velthara sat with Minot in his quarters. Pix and Trell were asleep, safe and unharmed. The 3 Quellen children Minot had rescued were sleeping nearby, wrapped in emergency blankets. You were right, Velthara said quietly, about what you said at the meeting. Compassion is contagious. Is it? Minot asked. He looked exhausted, physically and emotionally drained. The Tellusian merchant I saved, Velthara said. He came to me afterwards, offered me a job in his store, said he would pay double the normal wage, said he had been wrong about everything. Minho smiled slightly. Maybe there is hope for this galaxy after all. Because of humans, Velthara said. Because you show us that there is another way to live. A better way. She looked at the sleeping children. At Minho. At the medical reports coming in, showing that all 43 rescued refugees would survive. 5 humans had died. 5 beautiful, foolish, compassionate humans who ran toward death because someone needed saving. And 43 lives continued because they had. 3 months passed. Velthara stood in what used to be called the human quarter, but was now simply called the community center. It was not much to look at. Just a converted cargo bay with mismatched furniture and walls covered in drawings from children of a dozen different species. But it was warm. It was safe. And it was full of life. Pix was playing in the corner with a Vrexian child named Krelson, the nephew that Junho had died saving. The 2 children were building something with blocks, arguing cheerfully about architecture in the way only children could. Trell was taking her first steps, wobbling between Velthara and Nari, who clapped every time the baby managed 3 steps without falling. Tejo was there too, his prosthetic arm working almost as well as his real one had. He was teaching a group of young Syrians how to repair basic station equipment. He joked that he needed to train his future employees early. Una walked in carrying boxes of food. Behind her came the Tellusian merchant, who Velthara had saved, whose name was Plex. He was carrying even more boxes. These days, Plex donated 10% of his profits to the community center. He said it was good business. But Velthara had seen him crying at the memorial for the 5 humans who had died. She knew it was more than business. Meeting starts in 5 minutes, Una announced. We need to discuss the new refugee ship arriving next week. 30 families. Mostly Quellens and some Syrians. We have room, Velthara said. She had become one of the community center's organizers. helping new refugees find housing and work. The frightened mother who had begged at Minho's door 3 months ago was gone. In her place was someone who had found purpose. The meeting room filled quickly. Humans and aliens sat together, discussing logistics and resources. A Vrexian warrior sat next to a Quellan refugee, both working on a schedule for the community kitchen. A chitterling, who had modified its hive programming to include adoption protocols, was managing the children's education program with a human teacher named Dasim. Minho arrived last, as always. He still worked his maintenance shifts, still sent money to Sai back on Earth, still looked tired most of the time. But he also looked happy in a way Velfara had learned to recognize. The happiness of someone who was doing something that mattered. The meeting was productive. They planned housing arrangements, work assignments, and food distribution for the incoming refugees. The Tellusian merchants, led by Plex, had agreed to provide goods at cost. The Vrexian security force, now led by Krell, who had replaced his superior after the hull breach incident, promised to protect the refugee sector with the same intensity they protected the rest of the station. Administrator Crix himself had implemented new policies. The regulations that made helping refugees illegal had been reversed. Instead, the station now had an official integration program, designed by humans but supported by all species. It was not perfect. There were still arguments and conflicts. But it was working. After the meeting, Velfara found Minho standing at the memorial wall. It had been built in the community center, listing the names of those who died in the hull breach. Junho, Hyeri, 3 others whose sacrifice had changed everything. You think about them often, Velfara said, standing beside him. Every day, Minho admitted. I wonder if they knew, if they understood what their deaths would mean. They knew they were saving lives, Velfara said. That was enough for them. Minho nodded slowly. His data pad chimed. He checked it and smiled. Message from Sahi. She is coming to visit next month. The new treatment is working. She is strong enough to travel. That is wonderful, Velfara said. And it was. She had heard so much about Sohi over the months. She felt like she already knew Minho's sister. She wants to meet you, Minho said. She read all my messages about what has been happening here. She says she is proud of me. She should be, Velfara said. You changed a whole station. I did not do it alone, Minho said. And I did not change the station. I just helped some people. They changed themselves. But Velfara knew it was more than that. Word of Kalo 7 was spreading across the galaxy. Other stations were hearing about the human method, about the community center, about different species helping each other. Some dismissed it as anomaly. Others were curious. A few were actively trying to copy it. The change was slow. The galaxy was vast and old and set in its ways. But it was changed nonetheless. A notification appeared on the community center's main screen. A Galactic Council broadcast. Velfara and Minho watched as the image of a grand council chamber appeared. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in a massive circular room. And in the center, standing at a podium, was a human. Ambassador G1, representing Earth. The audio came through clearly. A Vrexian council member was speaking, his voice harsh. The human settlements continue to disrupt established survival paradigms. Their stations report resource inefficiency rates of 30% higher than galactic standards. They waste materials on unregistered aliens. They implement emotional decision-making protocols that contradict millions of years of evolutionary logic. We demand an explanation. Ambassador Jiwan stood calmly, waiting for the council chamber to quiet. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. You are correct, she said. We are inefficient by your standards. We waste resources on strangers. We make decisions based on emotions that you consider weaknesses. And we will continue to do so. Murmurs filled the chamber. Ji Wang continued. You ask for an explanation, so I will give you one. Humanity survived not because we were the strongest species on our planet. We were not. Not even close. We survived not because we were the smartest. Many other species had that title. We survived because when someone in our tribe fell, we picked them up. When someone was hungry, we shared food even if we had little. When someone was threatened, we fought for them even if they were not related to us by blood. She paused, looking around the council chamber. You evolved past compassion because you decided it was inefficient. You calculated that helping outsiders was a waste of resources. You created civilizations based on the principle that every being should prioritize their own survival above all else. And you succeeded. You built an empire that spans galaxies. You achieved technological wonders we are only beginning to understand. Then you admit your methods are inferior, a Tellusian council member said. No, Jiwan said. I am saying our methods are different. You built an empire. We built communities. You achieved efficiency. We achieved connection. You created perfect survival systems. We created reasons to survive. She activated a holographic display. Images of Kalo 7 appeared. The community center. The mixed species families. Children playing together. The memorial wall. This is Station Kalo 7. 3 months ago, it was like every other station in the galaxy. Efficient. Clean. Empty. People lived next to each other, but never with each other. And then a Quellan mother knocked on a human's door, begging for food for her children. More images appeared. Minho opening his door. The community forming. The hull breach rescue. The memorial. One human helped, Jiwan said. Then another. Then another. They gave what they could not afford to give. They risked what they could not afford to risk. 5 of them died saving aliens they barely knew. And something extraordinary happened. The other species watched. And they started to change. She showed footage from the current day. Phyrexians teaching Quellan children. Tellusians donating to refugees. Chitlins modifying their behavior to include non-hive members. Change is spreading. Not because we forced it. Not because we have superior weapons or technology. But because we showed another way to live. A way that values connection over efficiency. A way that chooses compassion over calculation. This is weakness, the Phyrexian council member insisted. Your species will be exploited. You will give everything to others and have nothing left for yourselves. Perhaps, Jiwan agreed. But let me ask you something. When was the last time anyone in this chamber died for someone outside their species? When was the last time any of your civilizations made a sacrifice for strangers? When was the last time you felt anything beyond calculating self-interest? Silence filled the council chamber. You call it weakness, Jiwan said quietly. We call it humanity. And yes, it costs us. It costs us resources and energy, and sometimes lives. But here is what you do not understand. We do not help others because it is efficient. We do not show compassion because we calculate that it will benefit us. We help because the day we stop being human. And we would rather die human than live as anything else. She looked directly at the council members. You can reject our methods. You can dismiss our approach as evolutionary failure. You can predict our downfall. But I want you to remember something. Every species in this chamber survived by being strong, smart, and ruthless. You outlasted your competitors. You conquered your worlds. You achieved galactic dominance. And yet, when a child cries from hunger, you calculate whether helping is efficient. When someone begs for mercy, you determine if compassion serves your interests. When death comes for a stranger, you look away because their survival is not your responsibility. She paused. We cannot do that. We tried. Our history is full of times when we looked away, when we calculated that helping was too expensive, when we decided that survival required cruelty. And every single time we lost something. We lost the part of ourselves that makes life worth living. So yes, we are inefficient. Yes, we are emotional. Yes, we help even when it hurts us. Because that is who we are. That is who we choose to be. The council chamber was absolutely silent. The galaxy can accept us or reject us, Jiwan finished. But we will not change. Humanity will continue to help. We will continue to care. We will continue to build communities instead of empires. And perhaps, if you watch us long enough, you might remember what you lost when you evolved past compassion. You might remember that survival is not the same as living. She sat down. The broadcast ended in the community center on Kalo 7. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Plex, the Tellusian merchant, started a slow clapping sound with his appendages. Others joined. Humans and aliens together, applauding a speech delivered light years away. Belphara looked at Minnow. She is right, you know. You humans are changing the galaxy. Maybe, Minnow said. Or maybe we are just reminding the galaxy what it forgot. That night, Belphara stood at the observation window with her children. She pointed to the stars, telling them about Quella Prime, about their father who had died protecting them, about the journey that brought them here. Why did we survive, Mama? Pix asked. So many others did not. Belphara thought about that question. She thought about the door opening when she knocked, about Minnow giving them his food, about humans dying to save strangers, about a galaxy slowly learning to care again.